Since this is about Livia, and I love the woman, and I think she has a fascinating story, I decided to sit down and finally start watching this. I knew about it when it came out, and I saw the poster and I wanted to vomit. It looked like absolute trash. Ancient Rome meets Hollywood meets Vogue meets Pornhub, and made to resemble the next Game of Thrones ripoff just because they want to ride the epic history themed show wave. I knew what the fuck it was from the very beginning, and I avoided watching it because I was tired of digging into negativity. So many films and shows are complete trash, and I could bash them all day long, and I just started refusing to do it because I didn't want to feel bad about it. I just wanted to feel good. I'd rather just talk about the things that I like instead. And so I avoided watching this stupid show for 2 years. I think it came out in 21 or whatever. And so today I finally decided to sit down and watch it just because it's supposed to be about Livia and I love her so much. It's like the situation with Blonde, the last Marilyn Monroe movie. I heard it was trash, but because I love Marilyn so much, I said to myself, I just have to make myself see it and acknowledge it as trash. I don't know if that made much sense as an explanation, but whatever the case, I sat down today and I watched the first episode of Domina. And what can I say? No surprises whatsoever. It turns out it was exactly what I was expecting. I'm just gonna go through the few points I managed to throw down on paper and see how long I'm gonna be able to rant about them. Point one, we start with written narration, of course, to give us the main idea of what's happening. And it says Julius Caesar was killed a year ago, and now there's a power struggle in Rome between, and I quote, those who want to restore power to the people and those who want power for themselves. And my immediate reaction to this is those who want to restore power to the people. Are you fucking kidding me? You think Brutus and Cassius killed Caesar because they wanted to give power to the people? You really think republicanism in the first century BCE was about giving power to the people? And that they were, quote, the good guys? This is like the stupidest and most simplistic explanation of the Civil War you could give. And not only is it simplistic, but it's also not true. The conspirators killed Caesar because they were annoyed at his power and wanted to get power back for themselves, not the people. I mean, they would have said it was for the people, but that's a blatant propaganda lie that they used in order to absolve themselves of the murder. And also, this is the very reason they were not successful in getting power back, even after they actually killed Caesar. The people still didn't vouch for them because the people knew Brutus and Cassius didn't give a fuck about him, let alone giving them power. The people knew the Republic, as it was then, was corrupt as hell. And they even liked Caesar because Caesar gave them money and he improved the city infrastructure and so on. The people were on Caesar's side mostly, not the conspirators. Anyway, I don't want to give a history lecture. This is just about a stupid show, so let's move on. Point two. Of course, how else could you ever start a history show without immediately getting into the sex part? First thing you need to know right away is how different the world was in terms of sex. Non consensual, contractual rapes, abuse against minors, abuse against women, sex, and more weird sex elements that they go out of their way to show you right at the start. Just just let me die in peace and leave me alone. Point three. Livia hears some people talking about killing a man at a wedding, and her father says he can't do it because it's a quote unquote un-Roman. Wherever the fuck did you get that idea? Rome was founded on the myth of fratricide, and Rome was a fucking predatory empire that swallowed up independent countries and made them provinces for sport. In what way is killing anyone un-Roman? If anything, that's about the most Roman fucking thing you can do. Point 4. All the men kissing on the mouth when they meet. Was this an actual thing? Because I don't think it was, and I find it weird. I might have to Google it later, but I've never heard or read about friends kissing on the mouth every time they meet in the Roman world, especially fucking Mark Antony and Octavian. If this is historically accurate, don't get me wrong, good for them for not being afraid to show it. But if it's not, what the hell are you doing? And by the way, I know Octavian and Agrippa were pretty young at the time, but come on, they look like fucking kids in the Halloween costumes or whatever. And Mark Antony is supposed to be about 40, I think, at this point. He looks 28. And what's with the long hair on Octavian? Give me a break. This is supposed to be a patrician, a political and military leader, an aspiring model for Romans, and he walks around with that haircut, given that no one else around him has one. Point 5. And speaking of Octavian, in this show he's portrayed as if he's fucking Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Always talking about killing people, always fucking around with some girls, getting blowjobs and whatnot. Just give me a break. Octavian was the kind of person who imposed legal punishments for unmarried people and those who were caught cheating. Of course, one could argue that it's exactly this kind of outwardly moralistic douchebags who actually engage in the most perverted sex practices, but even so, he would have been that insanely, wouldn't have been, excuse me, that insanely open about it. If there's one fucking thing Augustus is most famous for, it's saving face. It's pretending to be not only holier than thou, but the most holy asshole of all time. Like, look at me, I'm not an emperor, I'm just a regular citizen. Look at my family, we're all in traditional marriages and love each other, and we don't do divorces and random sex. Look at me, I pardon everyone, and I even take care of children of people that I murdered, because I'm such an angel. Augustus was the kind of person who would pretty much fall into the evangelical right wing in the US today, blabbing all day about his perfect virtue and how everyone else is a sick pervert in comparison to him. And this show wants me to believe that he was a horn-dog teenager who went around getting blowjobs at weddings. And speaking of weddings, point 6. Livia's wedding scene to Nero, would they make the big sacrifice in the atrium of their fucking house? I might be wrong, but I think that's ridiculous. They would have done it at a house altar or something. Maybe at a temple, whatever. And the ceremony. The man was like, do you want this woman? Yes. And Livia was like, do you want the man? Yes. And then boom, it was done. That's it? That's your ceremony? You couldn't dig a little deeper into speeches and stuff. Anyway, point 7. Livia's wedding, Augustus and Agrippa literally just standing in the middle of the party among everyone and discussing killing people and taking their money. And all without even lowering their voices. This is just beyond stupid. Point 8. Livia's father in the latrine taking a shit, and they made the effort of showing how Romans wiped their asses, which was accurate, sponge and all, but he literally touched his ass with the sponge for 2 seconds and that was it. I mean, if you're gonna show the ancient Roman sponge for ass wiping, at least wipe realistically. Point 9. So it's Livia's wedding still. People were gathered at her house for the celebration, and then Octavian, who's a guest at the wedding, goes off to some room in Livia's house with some girl that sucks him off, and Livia watches? Are you serious? What did I just see? And then they suddenly kiss right after, and she grabs him by the dick. My brain hurts. Oh, and also it turns out that the girl who gave Octavian a blowjob was actually Cicero's wife. It's like the Kardashians wrote the script or something. And point 10, which is the last one before I succumb to the brain damage. The only thing that I like so far was the prescription scenes where they put the list of people in the forum and then you gotta run if you're on it. That I liked. I needed to put something positive in this review just for my sanity's sake. That's all for now. I'm gonna watch the second episode. Please send me thoughts and prayers.